Hey, have you ever wondered why some communities click? They make it, they grow, they evolve, and they flourish? Yet some communities, the same kinds of communities, fall flat on their face. They fizzle out, they crash and burn, they're a flop, they go bust. If you've ever thought about that and you don't want your community to go bust, you want it to flourish, stick around because we are going to be talking about the sense of community. Hey, I am Marc Cordon Creative, and I help folks from the island of misfit toys to disrupt the status quo on big stages like TEDx stages and getting on podcasts, as well as creating digital courses that help us unlearn. All right, so here's the game plan for the rest of the video. We have this huge theory, sense of community by McMillan and Chavis. What they actually talk about in their research is that there's four component parts. I'm gonna go over each of the four component parts. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're gonna have everything that you need to create your own community from scratch. What are we waiting for? Let's go. When it comes to understanding the four pillars to the sense of community, the first pillar is huge. It's called membership. And when it comes to membership asks the question, who is my in group and who is my out group? And I'm not talking about in group, out group, social justice stuff. I'm talking about social psychology, sociology ways of looking at it. Who is the in group and who is the out group, right? So an example of this is in Harry Potter. Who are the Slytherin? Well, the Slytherin have sort of a same personality type, live in the dungeons, but I can tell because of the color green. I just know those folks are Slytherin, right? So the in group is Slytherin. They all wear green. They have a personality type, and the out group is all the other houses. So let's talk about the TED Talk that Jane McGonigal gave. The name of it is called The Game That Can Give You 10 Extra Years of Your Life. It's going to be in the description. And at the very beginning of the talk, she talked about her traumatic brain injury. Now, I've never had one. I've never had a traumatic brain injury, but here is something that I thought was very clever on her part. She didn't talk only from an I standpoint throughout the talk. She talked about a we, an us, an our. So when she's using words like we and us and our, there's a sort of collective membership that I was feeling. I was drawn to that story. And while I haven't had a traumatic brain injury, I have had some really crappy times where I was looking up and I knew that there was a big challenge ahead of me. So when she goes and talks about turning into a game, I can then turn it into a game because I feel connected to what it is that she's talking about. So here we are looking at the sense of community. We just went through membership. Now we're going to go and talk about influence. And by influence, I mean this. I get to influence and you get to influence me. So when we come into a community, it's a big deal for the community to influence me for the better, right? I come in, I evolve, I become happier, I become a better person as a result of being influenced by this group. Yet, it's a two-way street when it comes to influence. So I can come in and I can be seen and heard and felt. When I speak, it matters. So on a two-way street, when that happens, social cohesion starts happening, trust starts building. So that's the big thing with influence. It's a two-way street. A great example of this bi-directional influence could be found in the civil rights movements in the 1950s and 1960s. We had folks like Martin Luther King getting on big stages talking about segregation and end of it, the end of discrimination, nonviolent protests, right? So this was coming from some of the leaders in that movement. But then also there were grassroots things going on in the movement as well. There were folks who were staging protests, they were having sit-ins, and what was happening was that both of these groups had influence and they were strengthening the civil rights movement. So that's another way of thinking about how influence is just so impactful, especially in creating change in the world. Let's go back to Jane McGonigal's TED Talk, a talk in which She obviously has influence from the stage. She's standing on the red dot. She has the classic TEDx or TED mic, the one that comes from the ear to the side of your mouth. All lights are on her. She's telling her story. So obviously she has an influence over the crowd. Now, during the talk, she goes and has people in the audience do exercises that bring out their own feelings of resilience, their own feelings of happiness. And that feeling from the audience goes back to Jane and confirms what she was talking about in the first place, that Jane putting out her stuff, the audience confirming it, even feeling it, and then sending it back to Jane. Hope that makes sense. Let's see if we can try this out right now. Let's see if we can get the two-way influence thing working. Number one is on my side. I would love for you to subscribe, hit like, as well as the notification bell so you get more things like this sent to you over YouTube. But also, I want you to comment in the comments boxes down there, something that you would love for me to cover. Is it about TEDx's? Is it about digital course creation? Is it about podcasting? Is it about positive psychology? Is it something else? Go and write it in the comments, and I'm going to go and choose one, and I'm going to do a video based on that. I've influenced you. Hopefully you influence me. Let's keep going. Okay, so we've covered 2 out of the 4 pillars of sense of community by McMillan and Chavis. The first being membership, the second being influence. The third one that I'm introducing is integration of fulfillment of needs. And essentially what this talks about is we join organizations because we want to get value out of it. We need some challenge being solved, right? So one of the biggest examples of this is Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step program that helps people who want to stop drinking, right? That's their problem. That's their challenge. They want to come into AA to stop the drinking. And what does the AA community do? It hooks them up with a sponsor, meetings, literature, support, friendships, fellowships. It does all of that to get someone to address their need of alcoholism, as well as how to stay in sobriety. So when it comes to McGonagall's TED Talk, the fulfillment of needs has to do with someone wanting to be more resilient, or like the title says, someone who wants to add 10 more years to their life. Okay, so when it comes to the sense of community that McMillan and Chavis put out there, we've tackled 3 of the 4 pillars. Number 1, membership. Number 2, influence. Number 3, fulfillment of needs. And then number 4 is shared emotional connection. We go through something together, which pulls us together, right? I remember being a part of a roller derby team and we had nothing in common. Then we played our first bout together, and the next thing you know, we're super close. There's so many examples in pop culture of shared emotional connection. For example, Stranger Things. We look at this guy, season 1, Will, who goes missing. The next thing you know, there's this sort of group of ragtag kids that are coming together and fighting for themselves, fighting others on behalf of this group. That is a shared emotional connection. Okay, so let's go back to Jane McGonigal and her TED Talk and see if this idea of shared emotional connection shows up. And to me, the very first thing that shows up is when she refers to Bronnie Ware, who was a hospice nurse and had seen many, many, many people give their last words. And what was interesting was that Bronnie had found sort of like 5 things that people talked about all the time. So this was in her book, The Regrets of the Dying. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. I wish that I had let myself be happier. 5 regrets of the dying. And as I listen to this, to me, those are very emotional because I'm not on my deathbed yet, but I don't want to work so hard. I do want to be happier. Those are things that just kind of, it feels like she's speaking directly to Mark, right? And so in this TED, you can see that feeling of not wanting to live a life of regret. I want to go and take action now. And I want to go and add 10 more years to my life. Thank you, Jane McGonigal. That's how that looks like in a TEDx talk. You can use these forms of community, the sense of community anywhere. So hopefully by now you're seeing just how potent the sense of community theory is, whether it be you being on a TEDx stage or pop cultural references, it's all over the place. So one of the examples that I want to use with you from the multiple ways that I use sense of community is my online community, The Underground. When it comes to The Underground, what does membership look like? Membership looks like you going, clicking on a link, creating your underground like avatar or your account, and then that's it. You're a member. You click on the link, you create your account, that's it, right? The people who don't click on the link are not members, right? So also, what does influence look like in the underground? You come into the underground, there's a bunch of free courses, there's free chats, there's a whole bunch of things that can get you started when it comes to you expressing yourself, getting on a TEDx or podcast or creating your digital course, that kind of influence. But the other side, the two-way influence is that anyone who's a member of the underground can give feedback when people want it on their projects. The member of the underground, can go and, give some great examples to somebody who is struggling with, I don't know, ideas for TEDx talks, right? There is the two-way influence there, right? And there's also the influence where you can tell me what you want to see next. Like I keep myself very connectable. And so if you want something, I'll usually do it, right? What about the fulfillment of needs? People going into the underground are usually creatives, people aspiring to be TEDx speakers, people who are looking to create their own podcast, people who are wanting to do their digital courses, and or people who are creating their own business with sort of like this creative and conscious bent to it. Now, what about shared emotional connections? Well, that's built throughout the entire underground. Every Friday, being able to talk about what you're grateful for, that kind of emotional connection. Or when somebody gets their TEDx invitation or somebody launches their podcast, there's the huge congratulations that comes from that. If you haven't seen my video on virtuous friendships, virtuous friends, go and watch it, because those are the types of emotional connections that we're looking to have in the underground. All right, there you have it, the 4 pillars of what creates a sense of community, the sense of community that was created by McMillan and Chavis in 1986. I look forward to hearing about how you use it. Put in the comments how you're using that. Also, while you're still here, please subscribe, like, hit the notification bell so I can send you more videos like this one. That's it. Keep digging, and I'll see you in the underground. Come on, put your hands up. Doing it every day. Put your hands up. Growing the community, it's really what we want to do. Growing our community, because that's what we want to do. Grow community. Yep.